So welcome to Startup Grind. And so this is our first event for 2021. We're planning to have at least one event per month. Usually our signature format will be a fireside chat like today, but we're also planning for panel discussions. We're planning for parties, of course, when this is possible again, but this will most likely not happen this year, but hopefully again next year. So today's topic, venture capital to save the planet, and I'm really glad to have such a great speaker for my very first event, which is Fridtjof Detzner, Managing Director for Planet A Ventures, and he will just in a couple of minutes give you a brief introduction about the story of Planet A and how he got there where he is today and where things are going from there. So. But just a couple of words about Startup Grind. So Startup Grind is actually the world's largest startup community. So we are operating in more than 600 chapters in even more than 125 countries of the world. I'm joined by more than 1,700 colleagues, so chapter team members, and our community in total consists of more than 5 million people. So this is really amazing, because wherever you go where we have a startup ecosystem, you will most likely find a Startup Grind chapter, and then you will not find only people to talk to, but you have some friends over there. So what is our mission? Our mission is to give startups everywhere the education to opportunities they need to build, grow, and scale their companies. So our job really is to connect the dots, to bring the right people together, to make serendipity happen, actually. So just that startup find a good soil where they can build their startups upon. And of course, we help to network within these startup ecosystems. Our values, just 3, but we take them really, really seriously. So first of all, at Startup Grind events, it's not about making contacts. This is not a business card exchange event. This is really in making friends in the long term. So the more often you attend, the more engaged you are in talking to others in chats and in Q&As and whatever, the more you will likely know each other, and this will hopefully eventually lead to a couple of new friendships. Secondly, we believe in giving first, not taking. This is a common thing in the startup universe, actually. So give first is also the motto from Techstars. But nevertheless, this is really important, because always giving something enables everybody to give back. This is way better than just asking or taking. And of course, we believe in helping others before helping yourself. So for those of you who are not familiar, who am I? Just a couple of words about me. So my name is Dirk. I'm the freshly assigned chapter director for Startup Grind Hamburg. I'm 50 years old, so quite an old bud. And online since 1985. So I really remember when being online meant that you had a bandwidth of 300 bits per second. Right now, at my Wi-Fi here at home, I have roughly 250 million bits per second. So from 300 to 250 million, I joined all the way. I founded 4 different startups myself. 2 of them, I have to admit, failed miserably. One was a successful exit, and one was an acqui-hire by a big German e-commerce company. As of today, I'm working as a senior innovation manager at Bayersdorf, a company you maybe know, but what you definitely know are our brands like Nivea, La Prairie, Aquaphor, and Labello. And there, I'm also acting as part of the venture lead team. So at Oscar and Paul Bayersdorf Venture Capital, which is our corporate venture capital unit. And of course, additionally, I'm mentor at the NCA in Hamburg, Techstars, SAP-IO Foundry, and AltaState in the Nordics. So what's our agenda for today? So first of all, of course, right now we do have the welcome and interest at Startup Grind. Since this is an online event, we will not be able to have the full networking experience that we are looking for in our offline events. But this will come eventually. So we're working us there, and hopefully in a couple of months, so 3 to 4 events from now, we will at least be able to have some hybrid events, and then you will have more networking time before and after the event. Next is coming up a short intro talk by Fridtjof, who will tell us about Planet A and how to save the planet. And after that, I have prepared a couple of really tough questions for Fridtjof. No, I'm just kidding. So a couple of questions around different topics like the startup life, sustainability, venture capital, and of course, Planet A. And then I invite you to ask your questions. You can always do that in between via the chat. So my dear colleagues, Esti and Stephanie will have a look at the chat so that we don't miss any questions for the open Q&A and the AMA afterwards. And in roughly 90 minutes from now, we will end the official program. Okay, so given that, let's go. Oh, by the way, you will see this character quite frequently throughout all of our events. This is actually a character called Electrocat. And Electrocat is a character designed by my oldest daughter. She is an artist, an illustrator, and she helps me with making our Startup Grind events a bit more tangible by adding a specific character and illustration for each and every event. So, given that, yeah, again, welcome everybody. I see that some more people have joined, which is awesome. And now, without any further ado, I would like to hand over to Fridtjof. So, Fridtjof, please tell us how to save the planet.
Yeah, Dirk, maybe a word on the title. I think to save the planet with venture capital, that's a bit too bold. I think it's more complex than this. So we had a little bit of back and forth discussion about the title, and I think I would rather call it venture capital for the planet. And I think it is like we're facing big problems, right? So and solutions are often interdependent, based on different levels. But yeah, hey, glad to be here. Thanks, Dirk, for giving me the opportunity to speak to all of you. I'm super happy to kind of have a discussion with all of you. And yeah, so maybe I kick it off with a little bit of telling you how I got here in the first place. There's going to be something funny in it. There's something about a journey I took, which kind of has given me the opportunity to think about things a bit differently than I actually did before. So I'm going to share my screen and allow that. Cool. And tell you a little bit about why I decided to kind of invest my time into Planet A. So you all can hear me because I can't see anything, but you're probably fine, right?
We're fine, thank you.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for let me know. So to kick it off, really, I start really at the beginning. So that's where I'm coming from. It's not far away from Hamburg, 100 kilometers, but it's really literally nothing around. And so I was quite lucky. So I was given the opportunity to start my first business really early. So I was still 16, and to prove that, I have an embarrassing photo to share with you guys. That is actually our first press photo we ever had for the Cuxhavener Nachrichten, which is a local newspaper there. And what we did is pretty straightforward. It was back in the time. Websites you could either run, but let them being created by an agency or do it yourself. And so that's what we did. We did for kind of companies in the area. We did websites, and that was cool. But way cooler than doing websites for other people is creating a product in order to do websites or to enable customers to do their own websites. And that is what I actually did for most of my life. So from back in the barn, where actually my two co-founders, Christian and Matthias, left and right of me here in the picture, and they moved in, and they kind of were living in the rooms where my older brothers used to live in. And then at some time we moved to Hamburg, and we kept growing the company, right? And if you grow a company, and you know that's startup life, you kind of you go through different phases of building a company, right? So right in the moment when you start, you might be the technician to do something, and then you're building the product, the first prototypes, and actually you have the first customers, and so then at a certain point you hire more people. You have to be good in setting up structures and hiring the right people. Otherwise, you won't kind of step up this ladder and build an organization which can create something. And I was like super thankful to kind of go this journey together with Christian and Matthias, because they really helped me, to build this company together, and that felt really good to do this together. But actually, I wanted to kind of tell you about what I'm doing now, and this really is connected to a journey I took, and I decided kind of after 18 years of building and doing websites, I felt like, okay, there's probably more. And to put this into perspective, there's just school and Jimdo, which I did for most of my life. And so at some point I decided, okay, I want to go and explore more. And it was actually not an easy call, because Jimdo means so much to me. And I'm still like a shareholder. It hasn't changed. And Matthias is running the company now, and he's doing it really good. And so, yeah, I decided to go and explore. And at some point, I only wanted to go surfing, but that didn't turn out to be that much the case. So I got an offer to do something completely different, to swap roles, if you will. And swapping roles meant to me, I was given the opportunity to do a TV show together with DW. So the idea was that an entrepreneur is traveling the world, is meeting other entrepreneurs. And the beautiful thing about it is, like, I didn't have a script. I could just go and wander and explore and talk to politicians, to founders, obviously, and to experts, to scientists. And in order to make it more interesting, we kind of said, okay, let's take 10 out of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals as shells for each of the episodes. And that's what we did. And obviously it sounded like a huge fun. It's like, that's kind of actually the first filming day. So we went straight to Mongolia, which I'd never been before, obviously. I mean, I don't know if you guys have been. And then kind of riding 2 little horses, hanging out with eagle hunters, meeting entrepreneurs. And he was actually an entrepreneur, guiding people there. And a funny side fact is, like, he actually studied city planning in Dubai, and now he's a tour guide in Mongolia in the remote. And yeah, you come to new places. This, for instance, is the Space Agency of India, and being able to speak to the director and asking him about the different programs, how to go to the moon, the moon lander, or to Mars. So it was really amazing. And obviously you go to places and you get it. Like, it's a lot of input in a really short time. That's Malaysia. We've been doing a portrait here of entrepreneurs that help to fix solar panels for the indigenous people, which are not connected to the grid. And that was just amazing. And I mean, that was all the positive. And I wouldn't be here talking about what I do now if I wouldn't have seen the negative again. And actually, honestly, the negative was sticking to me much more as an experience. That's, for example, in Hong Kong. And in Hong Kong, we did a portrait of people living there. And Hong Kong is, as some background information, is kind of highest rent in the world. And so this kind of is creating a difficult housing situation for actually 500,000 people that you might see in the pictures live in this kind of cage homes, where it means, like, it's subdivided homes where you literally have no privacy, and you're just in the middle of it. And it was, for me as a personal experience, it was hard to withstand it. And I mean, that's the wrong word, which is hard to recognize and be there. And it was quite a different experience for myself being in this situation than just, I don't know, watching it remotely. And that is actually what was going on in this journey. It's like, this is a boy living in Bangladesh, in Dakar, and what he's doing there right now, he's kind of preparing injection molds for sandals. Sandals we all might buy in a shop, and I mean, basically, we did a portrait of a school, and so because we did this, I was able to witness his working routines and go with him and really get a sense of how his life is, right? And it really makes you think, and you have these perceptions of how a boy in his age should have his life. And then you learn about the circumstances, and you learn about how complex things are, and that they're just thriving or trying to survive as a family together. And you start to realize there's no real simple answers to complex questions, and like being able to explore that. Yeah, I mean, I'm super grateful for that. And this is another episode we're filming in central India, and that's Delhi, actually, normal street in Delhi. Walking there, I mean, you see it. I don't have to describe it. And this, for instance, is the biggest landfill in India, and they kept piling up trash there for 30 years, mixed trash. And a week or 2 weeks before we filmed there was actually a part of this huge mountain collapsing and burying 3 people, and they died. And yeah, really tragic. And then I'm finished with my this depression session, but it's reality. And I was interviewing this farmer, and this farmer actually tried to commit suicide. Luckily, he survived. Why did he do that? So he had the 3rd year in a row no yield, and he was in financial debt, and he couldn't think of another way for himself. And again, we do these portraits of people, but we filmed in a region where I can draw the correlation between the suicide rate of farmers and the changed weather data. And this is kind of, I mean, I was coming back, and if you look on what we've been doing together, is like we've built an economy which is using 1.7 Earth. So if you look at the data, you might have heard of the World Overshoot Day. This, for example, is in Germany something like just now, just kind of 2 weeks ago in May. And that's the point in time where the resources which we generate within 1 year are used up. And so in a perfect world, that would be in the end of December, right? But for us, it's already in May here in Germany. And if you look at the average in Germany, in the world in total, we're consuming 1.7 Earth. And what we know that we've built an economy, and we've been really optimizing for short-term profit. And I think we intellectually know why we did this. And honestly, it is also really obvious that we have to get out of this, right? So if we keep on doing that, the consequences are super clear. And I think part of what we see and what's happening right now is that we see tighter regulation, especially in Europe, coming in, still not at the speed we actually need it, but we see, for example, when it comes to plastic, we see this higher percentage of recycled plastic which has to be included into new plastic. We see alternatives of that. We see more emerging technologies, and we have this faster growing, changing attitude. And like we need that. We all know what happens if we don't act fast enough. And so the point I want to do is like we all have to work together to create an economy, and that the term we are using, below 1, meaning below the sum of what the planet can regenerate within 1 year. And so basically that was the conclusion. And I've met amazing entrepreneurs which are helping, for example, here Satya, to help to deal with climate change. For example, that is exactly in the region where we filmed before, and that is a greenhouse he's developed together with a university in the US. And what this greenhouse does is kind of lowering the temperature by 7 to 8 degrees. It's like quite different than here, what we do here. and also it's protecting against heavy rainfall, and it's still really affordable. And he puts it together as a package, right? The right fertilizer, this thing, and then also a smartphone. Then so whenever they they have kind of certain disease, you can take a photo and kind of send it to a central unit, and they answer really quick what to do. And I think that was super nicely done, where an entrepreneur was really listening to the problem and haven't overcomplicated the solution. And this, like I was talking to the farmer, he really said, hey, okay, this is amazing. This is actually feeding my family, and said everything else which is kind of around it. If there's this additional yield, this is cool, but he considers this optional, and this is really feeding his family. And yeah, obviously, after this 120 days of filming, I've seen lots of stuff, and was really puzzled by what I've seen in this short amount of time, and still believe in the power of entrepreneurship to move things, but also kind of got aware that it really matters what we're doing and where we put our power. And not saying, it does. And the thing is, what was also experienced at the same time is that there are founders which are tackling the world's biggest problems, but it's not the next Zalando or e-commerce startup or whatever, and to really have a harder time to acquire funding and help for their idea, even though it's relatively clear that future business models will enable these companies. I find that really, really frustrating, because it is really, they're working on things which really matter, what should matter to us. And the other reflection I had is like everything I've seen is actually pretty much caused by people which, like me, I'm totally including myself, like the richest 10% of the humanity have created 52% of the cumulative emissions out there. So basically, speaking to people which haven't caused the problems but still suffering from it, puts into perspective who should also act, in my realization, as I see it, as I reflect on it. And also, expecting poor people to create a lot of change is, I think, pretty mean, because they don't have the capacity. Like, if you really, I don't know, if you have to fight to feed your family, they can't change a lot. And so I would kind of, in this context here, would say, okay, if you want to start a company, then you can make an informed choice. What's the problem you really want to tackle? Where can you contribute? And what's the thing you really want to change? And I mean, this is cool. You can make an informed choice what you do. And this is also the conclusion I had for myself. Okay, cool. What can I do for myself? Like, what's the change I can help? And what I think I can help with is kind of to help to build these companies, to empower them. And if in this regard, I think to be able to kind of support this kind of founders is really amazing. And I think when you're working with good founders, obviously they need access to capital to build their companies. But I think that two more pillars, these two first ones, but I think are super important. One I'm going to talk about is impact forecasting, because I think it really matters which companies we are building at this point in time. And so maybe to dig down a little bit into impact investment or impact forecasting in that regard is, I think we all kind of we're pretty familiar with this world of, hey, we have a high quality of financial data to make informed decisions where to invest money. And I think it's great, because we can make these informed decisions. But it is actually not the same quality of data when it comes to the evaluation of the impact. And so the way we think at Planet A about it, and I'm not alone there, so we have two fully employed scientists on board, which is helping to make this kind of evaluations. So we think about Planet A as impact as, okay, planet is in the world, so we care about the planet. So it's safe to say it's the biosphere, and we picked about what are the things which really correlate with the biosphere. And to us, it's climate mitigation, then waste. Oh, sorry, I'm jumping in. So I think it's not enough to just pinpoint the SDGs and say, okay, we care about these things. I think it's really important that you get a level of precision into calculating this, that you actually compare today's world with the idea of startup, what kind of change they can bring to the world. And I think there you have to go into quantitative data. And to us, we do this really precisely in these 4 categories, which is climate mitigation, measured in greenhouse gases and tons, waste reductions, obviously on tons, resource savings as a group of indicators, and biodiversity protection. And so the ambition we have is that we really make informed choices or decisions when it comes to what are the companies we invest in, so they have a real lever in the improvement rate. We're doing something significantly better. And then obviously also business case to scale the impact. And we do this based on life cycle assessments. That's a quite old technology, well, quite old process. So it's 20 years old. So basically you look at the whole life cycle of a product, and then look into what goes into a product. So I don't know, the raw materials and how much energy do you need it, and then how often do you use a product, all the way to the end of the life scenario. And then you're able to have exact data and quantify the impact of a startup really precisely. And we did this, for example, with Wild Plastic, and compared. So what Wild Plastic does is kind of supporting plastic collection initiative throughout the world, inspiring the used plastic, and then transports it back to Haiti, to Europe, to make new plastic. And that is, you might ask, hey, isn't that totally bullshit to kind of transport something from Haiti back to Europe? And I think it's counterintuitive. But if you really do the math and you sum up all the data, then you will realize in the example, for example, with Wild Plastic, is by shipping plastic from Haiti back to Europe, per ton you're shipping back, you're emitting 73 kilograms of CO2 additionally, and that's not great. But if you compare it to new plastic, per ton of plastic you're producing, you're emitting 6.5 tons of CO2, so way more. And I think this is kind of the beauty of using LCAs. You can actually quantify it and make informed decisions then if the idea makes sense, yes or no. And this is what we do. And here's, I think, a great example of a corporate picking this up. Otto, they're going to, I can actually show you, I don't know if you can see my, wait, I'm going to be back in a sec. Not seeing you guys out. So actually, they're doing this, right? So they're going to swap their packaging from virgin plastic to recycled or to rescued, if you so will. And I think that's super cool. And basically, I just want to wrap it like that, and then start a discussion. But the point I want to make is it should be an informed choice what you're doing, and to have this level of quantify the impact, I think is important, because like the capital actually has an enormous responsibility, because often it decides which ideas actually turn into companies, and with these companies and then grow, they become again part of our economy. And we all know that we can't have an economy which is consuming 1.7 Earth. So actually we have to kind of change, and also bigger corporations have to change. And I think there comes the measurement and the level of precision is really important to get it in the investment decisions as well. All right, cool then. That's it. And I hope that was interesting somehow.
Wow. So thank you very much, Fridtjof, for big round of applause from not only from my side. That's really impressive journey, I have to say. as a warm-up, let's stay for the sustainability topic for a bit. So when I look what's happening around, we have topics like e-mobility, we have the climate change, plastic pledges from every single company, Fridays for Future movement, and all that things. So I sometimes have the feeling that it's kind of a hype, and this is what makes me wonder if this is a topic that is really gotten into the minds of managers and politicians, or this is something like a wave you're surfing right now, and this will slow down again in a couple of months ago. What's your opinion on that, and how can we keep the movement alive?
I feel like the perception of the sense of urgency of this topic hasn't gotten to all of them. So I would say we will continue to see the problems, and they're going to be all over the news. The likelihood of the problems getting worse and getting bigger is, I think, in my view, 100%. And so we're acting not fast enough. So the news is going to be there. And I mean, also for myself, like I like if you really have, if you connected to it and really have seen the problems, and then you at the same time you're realizing how slow organizations move, also bigger ones, then you feel like, okay, that's a huge mismatch. And normally people that are making decisions don't do a journey and see it firsthand, right? So it's I mean, I see no way that this will go away. It will just become bigger and bigger to a point where it's harder to move the needle. And what I see is that this generation of young entrepreneurs, or also serial entrepreneurs, which ask themselves what to do next, they pick these kind of topics because they matter. So I personally, I see no way that this can go away. And what I also see now happening is the future regulation, if you anticipate what's going to happen with higher prices for plastics, when you, carbon taxes, and also the change of economic behavior, personal consumption, then this will, it will happen that we make more informed choices. The question is it going to be fast enough? Yes or no?
Yeah. Well, what I wonder in regards to that is, so from my point of view, a lot of people think that actually doing something good is something they experience as bad, because I'm giving up something, I'm missing all the fun. So the reaction of people to the idea of making plastic more expensive, or making petrol more expensive, or raising prices for flights or something like that, is like they have to give up on something. They have to make hard choices which are not good as well. So what I wonder is, how can we make this more attractive? Because I think we're fully aware of all the problems that we're facing. But since most of the people did not a journey like you did, and since most of the people do not experience the downside of our old behavior by themselves, I think this is pretty hard to really teach to people, to make them aware of that.
I agree. So like the sense of urgency I'm speaking is like, I didn't have the sense of urgency before I did the journey. It's like honest answer. And I feel bad for it, because I got access to the knowledge before and also not acted in this speed as I try to do now. So it is about the emotional connection sometimes. But I think what I perceive is like, quite often we only talk about our personal consumption, right? And what we can do better. And then, and I think it's a valid discussion, and we should have it. But I think the far bigger choice is, who do I work for? Which idea do I work for? And where do I invest my money? and this is not being talked about as broadly. And I think if I look at it, it's like, all right, let us be busy and talk about something else. Why the big things we're not talking as much about. So
yeah. But that's a good point to hop onto, because you said, okay, where do we invest our money in? And first you were building some startups. You founded Wild Plastic, so and of course Green Loop. Yeah, so you were active in that space, trying to change something. Now you have built a VC company. This is a bit counterintuitive, because usually a lot of people think of venture capitalists first and foremost as of capitalists, so greedy, selfish, cash focused. What's your take on that? And are you just greedy with good intention, or how do you change, or how will you shape the perception of people when it comes to that topic?
I mean, the idea of building a venture fund comes if you take into consideration if you want to combine helping startups and also including science into the equation, you kind of have to build a body in order to be able to do this, and you have to finance this change, right? And so we did a few investments already. And I would do the argument that you will be able to earn quite a bit of money with a positive change. And I think the argument of you have to accept a lower return just for the sake of doing something good won't be valid in some cases, right? So the world is complex. That was my there's some cases you need philanthropic money to do something super cool. For the parts we're looking at, it's like you need money to build the idea. Like, for example, we invested into a company called Traceless, and what they do, it's bioplastics, right? So the big alternative. But normally the criticism with bioplastics is that you need to grow extra biomass, and then you need more land use. And this is exactly the opposite of what we're doing. And what Traceless does is they're using a byproduct in agricultural waste product, so no additional land use, and they can transform it into several really nice applications to substitute plastic. And the carbon footprint of this is kind of a tenth of what normal plastic would be. And so I would do the argument, okay, here regulation is working actually for the company, because and I like that, actually there will be plastic tax, there will be a higher price on carbon emissions, and I think that's great, because that's the real cost, and there will be alternatives which will be nice. And then like the problem which is not so good is actually rising in the price and is acting for the product which is better for the planet. And I think you can have these cases where you say, okay, this is actually good, and you should pour money into these solutions.
Yeah. So listening to you and what you say about Planet A Ventures gives me the impression that you act not only from the topic, but also from the operating model quite differently from standard VCs. So standard VCs always will state the team is the most important thing. Yeah, I invest in a team because the idea might change, the product might change, pivots are ahead. But listening to you, I get the impression that you look more into the solution and the effect of the solution. Is that right? Or how do you value that?
I think in this regard, we're not different. We just do something on top. So we also want a great team and a great business model, right? And we wouldn't ask for less there, actually. But we're bringing another level of complexity, and that's what I'm saying. I think we shouldn't hide away from this new level of complexity, kind of looking at the impact. And there you need a new set of eyes, a new set of expertise. And I wouldn't say I'm the one, therefore we have scientists on board. And that having that level of precision. And so to us, like basically a filter, like the filter could also be, hey, the impact is not relevant, or we don't believe in the hypothesis of the impact, and then we just say no. And other VC funds would say yes, because the rest is okay. But here's the thing, is I think more and more people are there to make this change and actually like that. And in the end of the investment process with Planet A, we're not only giving money, we actually give the scientific evidence. So if you look on our website, we actually talk about the impact and a scientific paper with a summary on top normal people can understand. So that's the twist. And I think that is an informed choice from a different, and there's more complexity, but obviously people like it as well, because it's helping them to prove their point, as seen with Otto and Wild Plastic, right?
Yeah. So thinking about the future, do you think that having a Planet A investment will be something that startups will start actually flexing with? Yeah. So like today they do this if they got accepted from 500 startups or Y Combinator or whatever. Yeah. So is that one of your goals, to say, okay, if you have a Planet A investments, you're proven impactful for the planet?
I mean, we just want to help the founders which kind of do something meaningful, and help them to build the company and to achieve their goals. It's like, I mean, basically, yeah, provide them with money and provide them with knowledge and help them on their way. I mean, I'm not saying that we are the heroes. I think the heroes of the stories are always the founders, because like we're just helping them to achieve their mission, right? So they are the ones saying, okay, I'm going to set out to tackle this big thing. So it's not me saying that, it's them, and I think they really deserve the help.
Okay. Talking about that, deserving help. Yeah. So most VCs that we have throughout the world totally suck at investing. Yeah. So with a hit rate of 5 to 15%, which is the industry average, you cannot say they are really doing a good job in investing. So when it comes to Planet A Ventures, I wonder, how do you convince your LPs, so the people giving you the money for the fund, that you will do better? Or are you willing to accept such high failure rates as well? I mean, you could do it like Bessemer. Bessemer Venture has one of the most entertaining VC websites ever. If you ever have the time, do check out the anti-portfolio from Bessemer Ventures, where they state why they didn't invest in Tesla, Facebook, Airbnb, PayPal, and all these companies. But I wonder about Planet A Ventures. What is your expected hit rate, and how do you ensure that?
I mean, there's a certain level of hit rate everybody has. So therefore, you're building up a portfolio about, in our case, then 30 or so companies you're investing into. So I mean, in the end of the day, it's venture capital. And like I wish for us to have 100% hit rate, but yeah. So there's definitely this element, and I think what we're seeing is that we get a really high quality of deal flow, and that we get asked for really strong founders, if we can help them. And I mean, there again, that was your first question. I get it. It's like, do you want to build a brand where people want to go to? Yeah, sure. So we want to help them, and we want to work with the best ones. But we also, I think we're bold enough then to be early and take the risks and do it.
Okay, cool. One last question about the VC investments and how you do that. So what do impact VCs like yours do like to see in a business plan? Is this, I just have a standard 12-page pitch deck, with all the usual stuff: business model, team, product, problem, solution, whatnot. And given that, or starting from there, what do you want to see in a startup where they invest the money? Do you invest rather in building a solution, like building a plant, or putting all the money into research? Because other VCs usually like to see the money being spent in customer acquisition, in marketing. Yeah, and I imagine that it might be a bit difficult for you to judge really, or to find an operating model where you say, okay, this is money well spent, because you will still need marketing and sales money to put the impact solutions to the market, but maybe at another ratio than in usual startups.
So again, I would say in some of the stuff, we're also looking for the team and the business plan, and we won't compromise on that. And I think what additional is of our interest is the impact, right? So if you can show how you can create the impact and put numbers to it and connect it. And for us really to make it part of the core of what you're doing. So like we wouldn't invest into a company which is kind of using parts of the profits to do something good. Because then the company can get sold and then the impact is gone. And then that's not why we have why we're building Planet A right now. So and I think if you can also provide evidence about the changing regulation, helping you in order to grow your business, I would also recommend to do this. Because look, I think changing regulations pretty much also means like changing boundaries of the system. So at the minute, we are incentivized to kind of not pay the real cost of our behavior when we're building companies, right? We like, I don't know, if you're emitting a lot of CO2, you don't have to pay for it. In the future, you will have. And I think that I mean with changing regulation is that you should consider this, and if you can make it a part of your pitch, I think that will be really, really cool.
Yeah. So you just mentioned that the companies that you invest in might get sold eventually. Yeah. So so a lot of founders start a company with a very specific goal in mind. Yeah. So like the rocket mantra, copy, scale, and get rich quick, or the Elon Musk approach, only I know how to run this planet, or I don't know, the infamous exit strategies that we see in a lot of business plans, which I'm personally absolutely not a fan of. Because I want to see a founder and I want to invest in a founder who really has a mission and who wants to build something, and it's somebody who wants to sell something after he made it to a certain point. What's your point of view on that? And especially if I might combine that with your own history of startup founding, since you somehow stumbled into success, let's put it that way. Yeah, if you remember the very first times. So I would just be curious, when did you start to care about goals, visions, missions, and strategies? Huh?
I mean, coming back to Jimdo, I think building Jimdo is not like the product itself is not rocket science, and I think a lot of people have built website builders, right? So it's just we're not the only ones having the idea to kind of enable other people. So it's a matter of execution. So it's a matter of goals. It's a matter of keeping you accountable and growing a team and like stepping up to this. And that I think to me it comes back to the equation of like also the impact is kind of what you change, what's the change you bring to the world times also how fast can you scale? Because like if you want to change something, then I think you somehow have to make it big and have to make it scale. And so that's an ability we want to see in the founders, that they take this on and reflect on their own capacities and also build the right team about themselves to be able to do this.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So talking about the founders, I wonder what makes starting an impact company or a sustainability startup special. So what's cool, what's maybe difficult, and what totally sucks? Yeah, because I can imagine that this is not like founding another tech company in the field of artificial intelligence or founding another e-commerce company. Yeah, so I do feel that there might be things different. I remember I was once visiting Infarm in Berlin when I still were there, and they had so many volunteers working for them that this was really an advantage over other startups, because other startups had actually to hire people and they had volunteers working for them. Yeah? Is this typical inside the impact startup scene, and how do you build something like that?
So I would say I think your observation is right. So attracting good talent for a mission that is doing something good gets easier. At the minute, getting the money is still harder. I wish for a world where we don't have this word impact investment anymore, where all our investments are kind of contributing to a world within the planetary boundaries. And don't fuss about it. So I mean, it's really like I don't know. I think making informed choices on a different set of parameters, team, financial performance, but also what's the effects of my company, is something we will see become mainstream. Hopefully, if we don't, like not with us Planet A saying it, if you don't get it all together, if you don't get it straight, then we will continue to do what we do, and that will be good.
Yeah. Okay. Last question from my side before I open up for the open Q&A. If you were given godlike superpowers for one day, which would be the one thing on planet Earth that you would change immediately? Which one is the most important one? Where you say, okay, if I can only change one thing, but I have the godlike power, what do I do?
I would probably that more people realize how powerful money is, and that informed investment decisions are a thing for us personally, as people, as corporates, as everyone. So we can, like, it's not that we don't know what to do, and I think Corona is again the example, and well, we just do it. We don't do it in the speed which is necessary to create the change, even though the evidence is there. And I find that actually frustrating. So I would wish for more people to realize it.
Yeah, personally, I do hope that we do not need a crisis like a pandemic to really make people change their behavior. Yeah, so I mean, we all experience this. COVID-19 has been the most efficient and effective chief digital officer that we ever had, all over the world. Yeah, and so hopefully we can turn things around before the catastrophe hits us. Yeah. Thank you so much, Fridtjof, for answering my questions so far. I saw in the chat that we already have some questions from our audience.
Yes.
And
the first one comes from Matthias. So
yeah, it's Dirk touched on that a bit slightly. I would like to phrase it again in a bit different way. If you think if Planet A has a different expectation to the startups in terms of the hockey stick development you usually aim for as a VC, having in mind that perhaps the real impact comes from startups that are not in that scalable business model sphere the VCs often look for, and a more complex situation of building closed loops or building complex chains of activities. What do you think? What is your view on that?
Thanks for that the question, Matthias. And I think it's hopefully this is an argument of the past, actually, because I think, like, and this is a hypothesis, and we can talk about this, but if we don't build in a society or an economy where the ones which are making the biggest impact are not becoming also the monetary winners of this, then we won't change it, right? And And I think there are more and more signals we can pick up that this is changing. And so I know it's early days, but the goal we set for ourselves is to pick these winners really early and to bet on them, because they're actually the ones driving the change. And we can see more and more examples of this kind of impact companies, which you called them then, are actually now tier 1 VC cases where like generalist VC are going into. And I think that's great. And this is what we're going to see more, because more and more people get it. And I know it's not mainstream, it's not everyone. Like at the minute you're picking, right? So you're trying to do this. And I think hopefully that field will be bigger. And that is also interdependent on the regulations, right? So it's like it's a more complex picture, obviously. But yeah, so I would say you're able to pick these ones, and you will see also really high economic returns.
Yeah, thanks.
We do have another question, and Fridtjof just asked me to be his voice, so because he's not able to turn on the microphone or the camera, so let's do this for him. His question is, what do the LPs expect of their investments? Return on investments or return on planet? Is your vision for Planet A that of an investment opportunity or a charity?
I mean, I think it's answered with the question before in some regard. So we're looking for returns. I think LPs, it's hard to put them in one box. They do have different interests, right? So a family office mightn't be not as engaged as a serial founder, which is giving us money, which is then part of the story and is helping to bring this alive. We do have some strategic partnerships with corporates where they say, okay, this is super interesting also to have to gain knowledge about what we're doing. And I think the level of precision we bring into the calculation of the impact is something some people are interested in. So it's different.
Okay, thank you. So Christoph, feel free to write something if you have more questions.
That was an interesting point that you just touched, Fridtjof, the point of education. Yeah? So I always feel, and I experience that quite a lot, that founding a company is not really something that you are taught. It's not something that you can really learn at school, at university, and stuff like that. So you have to do a lot of self-discovery. So are you planning or have you ideas to change that a bit and to really enable not only those who already founded their company, but those who are looking for something to found?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think they're great initiatives and helping people to kind of go through a basic program. And I think whenever we engage, and so we work together with organizations like Project Together or different accelerators where kind of they help do this. And typically when in our first 5 investments, when we kind of step in, kind of that good on a good way. And so we try to be specific and helpful. And one of the ideas with Planet A is that we have a super strong network of people being able to support serial entrepreneurs, which can help wherever needed. And we want to make it really time efficient. So whenever we realize that there's a problem, we connect them to the right persons to be able to help.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and when you talk about partners, so usually the startup ecosystem consists of different parties for different stages of a startup. Yeah, so you have incubators, then you have after that the accelerators, and then you have the VCs, yeah, and finally the big M&A department somewhere else. So I wonder, is this already established for impact as well? So do we have decently working impact incubators and impact accelerators? Huh?
I mean, I mean, I think we will see a major shift of the topics. Like, I don't know, I'm mentored the Respond Accelerator program, and they're really focusing on creating good impact. So I'm super happy to be involved there. And so I think hopefully more people kind of get it and move into the idea. And I mean, I'm not saying like climate mitigation and circular economy, what we focus on is the only thing. Like, again, it's like we get social problems, we get other problems. It's like, again, we want to have a level of precision and some quality. And I think more people shifting towards is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. I see there's another question.
Yes, Esther.
Esti.
Yeah, thanks so much for this really insightful talk, Fridtjof. Really, really inspiring. So you mentioned one example, and this was Otto working with the wild plastics, and really, really cool. I wanted to know a little bit more about this landscape. So the willingness of corporates to really invest time and money with startups. How is this looking in this sustainability space? Maybe you can talk a little bit around that. And do you really see more opportunity here? Are there barriers that you're seeing? I work in a corporate, so it's always interesting to see kind of where the link is.
Honestly, different. So I mean, I was talking about BMW Foundation and the Respond program. I think they get it and they're really involved and they're creating a huge value there. And Otto is also a great example because obviously like if you pay fair wages for the people picking up the trash and you ship it back, it's going to be more costly than cheap virgin plastic, right? So it is. It's obviously that this here costs more than the virgin plastic, and so I mean different because not everyone is able to kind of they're not fast or eager enough to drive the change, and we see this differing from different, and it really depends on the management of the different corporates, and so I can't give a clear answer. Some picking it up, some don't, and the thing which is bothering me there is, I mean, it's obviously they have a huge lever because they have a huge customer base, and if they would kind of implement more change like this on a huge scale, it is doing a lot. And to be brave enough to do this, and to tell the story with Otto is obviously the people buying the material not happy, right? Because it just costs more. But then there's the corporate responsibility arm which loves it, and there's the marketing arm which also loves it. So you see a different dynamic in the corporates thinking differently of this, and that's a problem because you need to change structures so people can look differently at the problem, and then they're able to make the call. But if this doesn't happen, then it won't happen, basically, and that's my learning. And so, basically, talking about sustainability means you have to think differently about what you have been doing before, and that's obviously complex to huge organizations, and this is also the reason why they don't bring all the innovation themselves. And also what we see is that kind of this corporate accelerator programs are in general not the best, well, not bringing out the best innovation, and so it does make sense to partner. But yeah, it is long answer. I hope it still makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all know that corporates usually move at the pace of a sedated sloth. Yeah, so most likely. But on the other hand, I do believe that as soon as big corporates start picking up on that and really making that a message that they do so, I think they will see that at a competitive edge, and this might start a movement in other corporates as well. So because you want to be part of the game, and you still want to have millennial customers, for example, and those customers who care are the ones who will pay our bills and our wages in the future. So I think what it needs is an initial momentum, and of course, convincing a great company like Otto, which I have a personal history with, is always a good start. That's pretty cool. But see, there are more questions. Shinrai, yeah.
Yes, hi everyone. Hi Fridtjof. Thanks a lot for the story also in the beginning. I think it was very inspiring that you felt you felt the pain of also those parts of the world where there is a lot of pollution and those people have absolutely no means to trump it. It was cool to see the Mongolian eagle hunter with you. I'm coming from a neighboring country, Kazakhstan, and I was born in a city called Almaty, which is surrounded by mountains. And the urban planning post-Soviet was done in a way, it was not built in a correct way, unfortunately, so that the polluted air is staying in that basin, basically. And I definitely felt the pain, and I really wanted, actually, when I was living there, I can imagine how people who live in those kinds of parts of the world, they probably want to change that problem most. And then I'm thinking about the diversity of talent. How do you tap into this talent potential distributed around the world, also in those parts of the world where there are those problems, because I imagine also they're probably most inspired to solve them. Or if you do that already, how do you tap into that talent?
It's a really good question, and I ask myself, the same. And the honest answer is we were starting Planet A as a European fund, so we invest into European companies, which hopefully have an impact worldwide. And for most of the companies, I think that's true. And basically, we came, I concluded for myself that I get the best network, I have the best possibility to change something here, right? But by every means, it should be expanded to other countries as well. So, and it's just a matter of a first step. And for us, bringing in scientific evidence into making an informed decision is a big innovation in this space, which I think is funny that it's actually an innovation, but it is. And so basically it's starting somewhere and trying to lift this off the ground, so it starts to work, and that we can prove that forecasting the impact is a good proxy also for the monetary success to inspire other funds to do the same. So we're asking ourselves the questions like, what can we do that our impact is bigger than the sum of our investments? So that's what we're trying to achieve. And obviously is everybody who's building a fund, and they're all faced with, okay, I really like to kind of invest into a fund which has done it before. But if you bring an innovation, like bringing science in, then at some point you have to start. You have to build. You have to do it. And so this is kind of this effect where more conservative players are having a harder time to support newer ideas in this regard, but I think it is needed in order to support these entrepreneurs of the future. And so, yeah, it is complex. I would say. Basically, tapping into talent pools is, I think, getting easier because we all kind of. We're here in the Zoom conference. It doesn't matter where you're coming from right now. That's a big thing. So for us with Jimdo, it's like we hire from everywhere in the world. It doesn't matter where the people are anymore. So these are changes where you are able to tap into different talents, and I think what's happening with this is also how, like, normally you would, as an employee, you would be like if you're living in San Francisco or New York, or so, then you would earn a higher salary. And I think in a digital world, it's hard to justify that someone needs to earn a higher salary based on where he's living, and well, it's hard to justify to tell someone who's living somewhere else that he should be okay with his lower salary. So I think that's also something hopefully we will see changing. That it's developing more evenly, is that at least the salary is distributed more widely, not only on the few hotspots in the world.
Thank you.
Cool.
Matthias, you had a question.
When we talked before, we talked about corporates, and I had one question in mind, because some VCs are focusing with their portfolio companies on corporates to be an exit option. Do you see that also for Planet A portfolio companies, or do you see that more as a risk, because we have enough examples of acquisitions of corporates, and then the impact or the development or the idea is gone afterwards, and the spirit. What's your thought on that?
I mean, we're putting focus on that. We're treating our LPs equally. Basically, for some of the companies, we're investing at corporate controllably in exit options. So for some, it could probably financial rounds then. Could be different ways. I think, like again, it's like we're looking precisely on climate mitigation, waste reduction, resource efficiency, biodiversity, but that can mean mobility, it can mean geothermal, it can mean plastic reduction, and it can be a broad spectrum. And at those, it's hard to say at the minute where this is completely going. But what we see is that corporates can learn from kind of the methodology and the level of precision. I think, or to make more informed choices. That's what we see right now.
Cool. Great. So I do not see any more questions, at least in the chat. So if anybody has another question for Fridtjof, raise it now. Anyhow,
was something, another one from Christoph. I don't know if it's still, wait, he wrote, incubators for sure, like social impact lab, accelerators would be interesting.
Okay, yeah, that was.
Okay. I was just, he just wrote, that's a comment, not a question. Okay, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well then,
I do have one. So, Fridtjof, what's your biggest challenges if you stand up every morning? So, and having seen all the places in the world, having seen the good sides and the very bad ones. So, what is for you personally the biggest challenge?
Yeah, I mean, bridging this sense of urgency that some have it and some don't. That's tough sometimes. Like basically, organizations not realizing how privileged they are, and don't compare it to. That's sometimes really, really hard. And I think we're still often in a way where you want to, like, I don't know, it's sometimes a bit too much greenwashing and not in for the real change, and that's hard to bear.
Yeah, thank you. I can imagine that must be quite challenging, and this is frustrating. So yeah, totally.
I mean, yeah, but we're not changing the world by pointing fingers. I think
No.
Also the idea of this is kind of saying, hey, it's actually also a good business model to do this, I really truly believe it. So now also the first investments and what we see, what's happening there, it's like that just picking up speed so we kind of get overrun by cool founders. Well, that's great.
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea.
Talking about that, being overrun by founders. So I know a lot of VCs who completely ignore inbound emails, cold calls, and whatever. Yeah? So they are not really approachable. Is that different with you? So can anybody have your email address and send you their pitch deck, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, if you look on the website, there's a process to kind of pitch to us, and we ask a couple of questions so we have better information up front. And so we do that. We try to do our best, and at the same time we're building up this. So it's actually a tough thing to do this. But yeah, so we're trying to be as approachable as we can.
Okay, cool. Well then, time to wrap things up. And again, from my side, thank you so much, Fridtjof. Big round of applause from all of us, I think. And thank for all of you who stayed with us for this first event. I hope you like it. I hope you spread the word. And for the next event, I hope to see you again and maybe bring somebody with you. So because every community, and especially a startup community, can only be as good as their members. So the more people come in, you know, the network effect, the better the community will become, the more helpful it will become. So thank you again, Fridtjof, for being my pilot case here, so to speak. Yeah, my guinea pig for the first Startup Grind event in Hamburg. And yeah, so then I would call this a day. Thank you very much, all of you. Have a great evening.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.